Hello and welcome to Tiny Table Talk for The Challenge, Season 38, Episode 9. We have officially hit the halfway point, and the challenge this week threw a lot at us all at once, so I have a lot to cover in this video, so let's not waste any time, starting with... Now I don't want to get too deep into the conversation of Jordan and Tori. It's a really touchy subject. I think that there should have been steps and boundaries in place to help one another and each other. We heard Tori yelling at Jordan saying, "You were in my bed." We even saw this earlier in the season. "You were in my bed." They saw each other undressed, or when they were undressed, in a very vulnerable position. And then they even said, "I love you" at one point to each other, which is, when I heard that, I was like, no. If I was in the house and in that situation, I know personally I wouldn't be able to handle it if I heard an ex-fiance say, "I love you," especially if they were the one that broke up with you and you still have these deep-rooted feelings for one another, which clearly Jordan and Tori do. I just think that there were so many lines that were crossed where boundaries should have been instantly put up. And I know that's easier said than done, especially when you're not involved in the relationship. You're not in the house 24/7. You're sitting on your couch watching the TV, but it's so rough to watch at certain points. All these feelings, all these emotions, getting angry with each other, knowing that there's so much more embedded deep down. It's just really tough. And I just think that boundaries should have been placed way sooner when Jordan came into the season, where both of them could have talked and put up these boundaries where they could be acquaintances. They could have worked on a friendship, because now it just doesn't seem like anything is salvageable once we hit this boiling point, because it just seems like there's still this very deep-rooted emotions that have now turned to anger, and they don't want to even be around each other at all. And we're only halfway through this season, so it's really sad to see. Now, before we can get into analyzing both teams, going over pros and cons, let's talk about the team captains of Fessy and Moriah. Once partners, now are separate, and it seems like they're enemies at this point. Moriah, who in the beginning of this episode was being encouraging, being there for her partner, letting him even use her shirt as a tissue to wipe the tears from his eyes, to then get to the mini final daily challenge, win it together, because they both had to beast it out. They had to work as a tandem to win, get into this power. And it sounds like from Moriah's tweets that quickly how things soured between the two, mainly on Fessy's side, because they get back to the challenge house and Fessy just instantly, boom, locked up. And let's be real, this is a game for $1 million, all right? People take this very seriously, especially Fessy, who really wants to win a championship. I mean, who doesn't? If you haven't won it, and even if you have won it, you want to win it again. It's almost addictive. And he wants the best team, and I can't fault him for wanting the best team possible. But you can also have empathy for somebody that you brought into the game that is a rookie that just met these people. Moriah said after the episode had aired, "I trusted Fessy to be a good friend, but instead, when we were walking back from the mini final, I asked him if he could talk to make fair teams, and he said, quote, 'I brought you here.'" We heard that during the deliberation as well. "I became super sick, and he said, 'Not my partner, not my problem.'" Now, Moriah does say that she was feeling just really, really sick during the deliberation. They had to stop filming a couple of times so she could get up and have to go to the bathroom, get some water, get some ice, and Fessy was just not having it and had no sympathy for his own partner, his friend, his ride or die. Then she replied to herself saying, "The real tea will be spilled on Death, Taxes, and Bananas podcast. I defended Fessy's character so much to the other challengers when he didn't deserve it. He talked about me behind my back, making crazy statements like he carried me, and many more." Now, I was hoping to get to listen to the Death, Taxes, and Bananas podcast before making this Tiny Table Talk, but just the way that I film these and edit them and to get them out on time, the episode still hadn't been released on Spotify at the time of filming. So sadly, I haven't been able to listen to it, but once it gets dropped, I'll listen to it almost instantly when it gets dropped. And then I'll probably talk about it on my live stream on Saturday night on patreon.com/angelcakevids. Now, again, I can't fault Faysal for wanting to win, because if I was in there, I would be super competitive. But there is wanting to win, and there's also being nice and still wanting to win. We've seen nice guys win the challenge before. All right, so I did some sleuthing on these teams. Now, when you take a look at the stats, the numbers are going to skew to one team in particular because they have a 7-time champ. They have somebody that did 21 seasons, as well as somebody who did 16 seasons as well. When you look at the combined seasons of everybody on both teams, Team Faysal has 59 total seasons compared to Team Moriah's 33 total seasons. Daily wins, Team Faysal has 145. And Moriah's is 67. I mean, I think Bananas has 63 daily wins. Elimination wins, 45 for Team Faysal, 25 for Team Moriah. Final appearances, 21 in total for Team Faysal, 10 for Moriah. Again, Bananas has 10 final appearances. And then championships, you have Team Faysal with 8 and Team Moriah with 4. Now, it's funny to look at those championships because the 8 is based off of 2 players, Bananas and Casey, and then the 4 is based off of 2 players, Jordan and Amber. Now, when looking at the teams, I was thinking, okay, Team Moriah must have like a significant age difference to where Team Moriah is younger. Not so much, because rookies these days now are coming in and entering the challenge game older than what they used to in the past, when they would come in at 20, 21, and 22. Team Moriah's average age comes to about 30.6 years old, and Team Faysal's comes in an average of 32.75. Team Faysal, there's a lot of experience, which we know from season 34 that the more experienced team, not necessarily better team for team unity. Now, Team USA absolutely destroyed pretty much almost every daily challenge. They're pretty much fighting the entire time. So we could have a better chance with Moriah's team, one, working together, because there's not that big of egos on this side, where I could see Jordan being the captain or the leader and wanting to follow his orders because he is a champion. He has won this game and people want to win, and he has shown that he can be a pretty positive leader. Like, he can lead with positive reinforcements. I also think back to even just last season. What cell was winning so much of the time? And that was the Emerald cell. And they weren't the most jacked, you know? They had Devin, Tori, Casey, Josh. They had a good, well-rounded team, but they weren't the most dominant physically. I would give that to Sapphire's team with CT and Nelson and Kyle. I think they had more of the muscle. Ashley, I think they had more of the muscle than, say, Emerald Cell, but the way the daily challenges were always set up, the Emerald Cell was able to pull out so many wins, and I just don't think that you need as much muscle. And I think Team Moriah has enough muscle to be competitive, even in a strength challenge. I just don't think that we have a clear-cut winner, you know? I don't see one team just completely dominating going forward, because one, daily challenges can be all types of different tasks, and we don't know the team and how they're going to work together. Yes, Faysal has experience, but experience comes egos, comes pride. I actually am looking forward to the next episode to see how these teams work together, if they can work together, and possibly if Team Moriah can pull up the quote-unquote upset, because I don't even think that they're really necessarily underdogs, but I do think that they could pull out some wins and be quite impressive. I'm actually thinking that this could be very competitive going down the line. I'm hoping that the season can still be very spicy, can still be entertaining while also now in 2 teams. So we'll have to wait and see. But just looking at the teams team-wise, I'm actually thinking that this is very promising and am looking forward to the next daily challenge and especially getting to see what the eliminations will look like going forward in these 2-team formats. Now let's read some comments from my Thursday's review and recap. And the first comment comes from Saint Snicks 94, who says, I was so surprised when I saw Kenny speak in the first 10 minutes of the episode. Casey saying she forgets her brother is there sometimes was the funniest thing she's ever said. When I saw Kenny and Casey both get screen time, I was like, they're either in trouble or maybe they win. And then we saw everybody getting a confessional and talking to each other. I was like, oh, this is something that has to do with the twist. The next comment comes from Kendra O9647, who says, I thought we were getting a break from Josh's crying this season. Oh wait, that was Fessy. I was not expecting the waterworks. I thought he was just going to be like, oh man, I really hope I can win the next one and then just move on to talking about somebody else or a confessional from somebody else or even talking to Olivia and Nelson after coming back from the elimination and everything that happened. But no, we had more of Faysal just being down on himself and crying and talking to Moriah. And I have to say, Moriah, really good friend, really good partner for being there because she was so supportive. The next comment comes from Mrs. Awesome Singer 1, who says, it is grating watching Jordan trying to make Tori look crazy. He knew what he was doing to her mentally, and it's gross how unbothered he was about it. Let's not forget, he came into the season knowing she was there, but she didn't know he was coming. I know people could say like, oh, I think production does this or helps out a player. I almost wish they would have given some sort of heads up to Tori because she did talk in depth about everything that she did to get better after the breakup. And it just seemed like, I don't know, I don't want to say all that progress was kind of gone away after this, but you could tell like it's not good. It's not a good environment. It's not a good situation to be in. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable watching it now. Dano8622 says, when the picking started, TJ said Faysal had to pick a woman and Moriah a man, seeming like the gender picks should switch off. I don't understand how Faysal was allowed to pick Bananas and Nelson back to back. I was also confused by this picking mechanic because I was like, everybody. I was thinking, okay, they're going back and forth, back and forth. I did rewatch and re-listen to what TJ was saying, and at the beginning, he said Faysal had to pick a woman, then Moriah had to pick a man. That's when he turned to Moriah right before she picked Amber and didn't specify if she had to pick a man or a woman. He just said, Moriah, it's your turn to pick. He did not specify. So I think in that moment, and that was before Faysal picked Nelson, and I think that it could have restarted where Moriah could have picked anybody that she wanted. And that's what I assumed when TJ did not specify, all right, Moriah, it's your turn. You have to pick a woman. You have to pick a man. He did not say that. It was unclear. I just wish it was a lot clearer to us as the audience, as well as to everyone at the zone, because, I don't know, there's questions as well as like, did Moriah assume that they had to switch off and had to pick a woman at that point? You know, it's just weird. Full Throttle 6791 says, Devin being a last pick is a compliment because it shows that Tori and him are seen almost as equally important. The picks with huge differences in teammates like Jordan and Casey were important top picks. I think that's a good way of looking at it. That's a silver lining, you know? We saw Devin getting upset about being the last picked player, and he thought maybe he worked on himself enough to not be the last picked player. Casey and Kenny, there's a huge difference between the two and what they bring to a team. The same thing with Jordan and Anissa. So you want to get those players out of the way. Bananas is huge. So I would like Bananas. You could take Nani, and switching back and forth. So I think there is some validity to that in the way players picked. Daphne Gomes says, it's impressive how in season 36 and season 37, I didn't like Fessy, and now I still don't like Faysal. Every season he has to do or say something that I'm just like, really? Besides that, I like the 2 teams format. High hopes for Moriah's team. Yeah, the really moment for me, for Fessal, was I brought you here. And I'm right there with you. I'm rooting for Team Moriah and hoping that they can pull off some daily challenge wins and maybe put Team Faysal on their heels a little bit. Tennessee Gal says, I really hope that Moriah appoints jobs for people based on their strengths. For example, the puzzle people should be Nerys and Devin, Braun and Endurance, Moriah, Horacio, Jordan, and Amber. I agree. I think if you have certain players doing certain jobs and everybody knows what they need to do and what they bring to the team and their strengths, I think that's going to be very important. I just don't know if Moriah is going to be the one appointing jobs. I feel like it's going to be in line with the more experienced players on the team, and I think that Jordan will step up, of course, and I also think Devin will step up. So I think those two manning the helm, as long as they don't butt heads with each other, I think that Team Moriah could actually be in a pretty good position moving forward. GVLGW says, I honestly hate the twist. What's the point in having ride or dies? The team thing was horrible last season. If they want to do teams, have them start as teams. And at the midway point, it goes individuals or pairs. I think that would have been pretty questionable about the whole ride or dies thing. I mean, I understand. Like, I'm still cautiously optimistic about moving forward with two giant teams. This is a game where you were able to bring a friend, your best friend, an ex, whoever that was always going to have your back, and now you're split up into two teams, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think if it went into solo game, I think that would have been a more interesting aspect. Or you could have had a solo game where the last place finisher of a daily challenge goes directly into the elimination, and if that's your partner, and you're in a tribunal or something, and you're trying to work your hardest because that was your old partner, and you're trying to save them with every breath that you have left in you, and then the other people in the tribunal are like, no, I'm not going to save him. I want him gone. And it's like, well, you know, I think that would have been a lot more interesting of a twist than two teams. But again, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic. I'm going to be hoping for the best. Now, on the opposite end, an actual snake says, I actually appreciate this switch up. I didn't like the initial pairings of everyone being with their number one because I feel like it eliminated the main element that made Rivals and X's season so good. I'm hoping this twist will spark more conflict as everyone is trying to win while also attempting to protect their person on the other team, or better yet, having the R/Ds spark conflict as we're already seeing heavily with Moriah and Faysal. I mean, we saw multiple teammates get kind of frustrated with each other. I mean, heck, even Casey's like willing to throw her brother to the lion's den, it sounds like. She's like, oh, we're now facing off against each other. When she was talking to Faysal, she was just like, yeah, I want to be on your team. Forget my brother. Let's go. Let's ride this out, you know? So I think this is going to be very interesting. We did see some team members be able to mend fences before being split apart, but you never know what could happen, how the game is going to traverse to the point where maybe you're going to want to sacrifice your old teammate, you know? We'll have to wait and see. And the final comment comes from Steve2224, who says, are you going to do a breakdown of the trailer for the rest of the season, the mid-season teaser that was put out at the end of this episode? Yes, I will be doing a shot-for-shot trailer breakdown of the mid-season trailer that was put at the end of this episode, but the way I will do it is that I will be doing it live for my patrons over at patreon.com/angelcakevids on the Saturday night live stream. And then I'll be putting up an edited version of that breakdown on Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday, where it'll make it public and it'll be an edited version. But that is it for this week's Tiny Table Talk. What do you think about this episode? Let me know down in the comment section below. Who are you rooting for, Team Faysal or Team Moriah? Who do you think actually has a better team between the two? Let me know down in the comment section below. Let me know anything and everything you thought about this episode this past week, and maybe your comments or concerns for the rest of the season. How do you think the season is going to go? Let me know down in the comment section below. I want to give a special shout out. Thank you to everyone who supports me over at patreon.com/angelcakevids. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who is watching this video up to this point. I'll be back really soon with more challenge content, more challenge 38 content, more content in general. But until then, peace.